Good evening and welcome to RFL. I am Richard French. Thank you for joining us. A lot to get to on yet another busy day in D.C. with the White House trying to dig out of the president's twin legal setbacks this week. We have a lot to get to in the next 60 minutes here, and I want to tell you we're going to focus the majority of the program, obviously, on the huge developments out of Tuesday, the guilty verdict for former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort, and the guilty plea of former Trump attorney Michael Cohen, who also implicated the president, saying he ordered Cohen to pay off Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal. Now, the president searching for ways out of this week's political quagmire, but it seems every approach that he tries not only isn't working, unbelievably, he may be making his tenuous position even worse. We're going to dive into all of this with our panel, and in just a few moments, I'll give you and the president a piece of my mind here and some unsolicited advice for a political party. But first, today's developments, and there have been a lot of them breaking late this afternoon. And for that, let's bring in our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman. And the wheel turns, Andrew.
If it's a day ending in Y, there are big new stories about the Trump administration. Rich, lots of developments, so let's hit them as quickly as we can. First, new information about the 10 counts that Paul Manafort was not convicted on this week. President Trump had tweeted that the hung jury on those 10 counts proved the prosecution was a witch hunt. But a Manafort juror now says only one jury member held out, and that it had not been for that one woman, Manafort would have been convicted on all 18 counts. That juror reportedly would not budge from her own reasonable doubts, but the other 11 jurors all agreed. She also criticized prosecutors who said she looked bored during the trial. Manafort could face a retrial on those 10 counts. He also faces another separate federal trial in D.C. next month. The Manafort and Cohen cases prompting the president to tell Fox News this morning that witness flipping like Cohen or Michael Flynn did to him, or like Rick Gates did to Manafort, almost ought to be illegal. It's not clear if he meant that in general or only when people are flipping on him, but if the president hates witnesses flipping on him, then it looks like he's just lost another friend. The Wall Street Journal reporting that National Enquirer head David Pecker has flipped and will cooperate with the Mueller probe in exchange for immunity. Pecker, a longtime friend of the president's, was referenced on the tape Michael Cohen made of his conversations with Trump. Pecker, through Cohen and Trump, purchased the life story of former Playboy playmate Karen McDougal, who claimed an affair with Trump, then killed her story and any revelations about an affair to help Trump in the 2016 campaign. This week's legal setbacks have the president railing against the entire U.S. justice system, and in particular, his Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. This from his Fox and Friends interview this morning.
He took the job, and then he said, I'm going to recuse myself. I said, what kind of a man is this? And by the way, he was on the campaign. You know, the only reason I gave him the job because I felt loyalty. He was an original supporter.
Comments like that from Trump about Sessions are hardly new, but what is new is that today Sessions fought back. Just before heading to the White House for a meeting with Trump on an unrelated topic, Sessions released a statement saying the Justice Department will not be improperly influenced by political considerations, and pushed back on his recusal by noting, I took control of the Justice Department the day I was sworn in. And Sessions may soon have some company pushing back on Trump. The Times reported today that some top Republicans are now encouraging their most imperiled members to begin openly speaking out against the president's wrongdoings. The fear is that the Democrats will paint the GOP as harboring a culture of corruption and risk losing the House and perhaps the Senate. But thus far, few Republican incumbents or candidates have done so. Finally, the Times with a behind-the-scenes piece on how the White House prepared to handle the bad legal news of this week. Spoiler alert, they didn't. They just followed Trump's lead. Aides noting that Trump seemed uncharacteristically subdued, even asking staffers, we started with collusion, how did we end up here? It's a question a lot of us might be asking, Mr. President. Rich?
Tuesday was a historically bad day, not just for the Trump presidency, but I would argue the presidency in general. Now, the guilty plea Cohen struck with the feds allege, in no uncertain terms, let's be clear, that the president not only knew about, but directed criminal activity. So to give you context, if he were anyone else in this country other than the president of the United States, Donald J. Trump would be an unindicted co-conspirator, and he'd be looking at federal criminal charges. Now, this, of course, happening at just about the same time that Trump's former campaign manager was found guilty on 8 charges, as Andrew mentioned, in a federal court in Virginia. So in a normal universe, let's just imagine, a couple of years ago, with a human being possessing the capacity of shame or even context, our president would exhibit, contrition or even chagrin. Instead, this is what we get. On Fox News, we showed you the clip. He tells us not only the garbage you heard, but he says 80% of the news is fake. Now, I should know that includes everybody seemingly other than Fox News and conspiracy wingnuts. Now, after denying that he had any knowledge of the hush money payments, he now says there was nothing wrong with him. Of Paul Manafort, who's now looking at a lifetime behind bars for those 8 convicted charges. Trump, get this, praised Manafort, saying that he was, quote, somebody he had such respect for, a brave man who refused to break. I want you to consider what the president just said. He is praising a convicted felon for refusing to cooperate with his own Justice Department. Now, speaking of the Justice Department, today, as Andrew told you, the embattled Attorney General Jeff Sessions stood up to Trump and said his department wouldn't be bullied. We'll wait and see. Also today, another Trump seedy friend, David Pecker from the Inquirer, where does he find these people, agreed to cooperate with the feds as long as he gets immunity, seemingly ready to flip on his own buddy. He deserves the company. Now, all this and a mountain of other unprecedented, unseemly, corrupt self-dealing would seemingly beg the question of when, not if, Congress will be willing to push back, if not even pull the plug on this guy. But after 2 years of Trump, who the hell knows? The Washington Post's Margaret Sullivan, I thought, put it perfectly today when she asked, in a divided, disbelieving nation, will this really turn out to be the epic moment it looks like? Or will Trump's intense, years-long campaign to undermine the media and truth itself pay off now in the clutch? We as a nation have to answer that question, but a particular group, I believe, will be judged by history in the near and long term. I, of course, speak of Republicans on Capitol Hill. For 2 years, they have shown, with almost no exceptions, a willful ignorance, turning a blind eye to racism, bigotry, misogyny, and the national disgrace that was Helsinki, and so much more. As a party, and I don't care who you voted for, as a citizen, we would hope that everyone on Capitol Hill, regardless of party, would put country first. But how about it, GOP? How about you put on your big boy pants or big girl pants here and say, I have a line, and I'll give you 2 specifics. Right now, the Senate committee, the Judiciary Committee, in a bipartisan way, passed legislation that would immunize the Mueller probe. Senator McConnell doesn't even have the courage to bring it to a floor vote. How about now, Mitch? You say that, well, you don't need it because the president would never fire Mueller. Oh, really? I'd like to see that. And how about, just how about, you say, as a party, if the president pardons out of self-preservation anyone that has been caught up in these federal probes, as a party, you will immediately institute articles of impeachment and bring a vote to that. How about that? How about you show that you have a line as a party? How about you stand for something? How about you put country first? Okay, you've heard my thoughts on this, where we are with this president as we speak. And I'll be honest, I've been wrong for a couple of years about lines that I thought we would never cross and never accept. Well, after the break, I'll bring our panel in here. Will this, like so many other Trump scandals, simply fade with the news cycle, or is this something different? That and a lot more when we return.